Hey everyone, welcome to this tutorial. If you're new here, I'm Kate, the founder of Project Patterns. I'm a professional pattern cutter and I started Project Patterns as a way to share my love and hopefully some knowledge of pattern cutting with all of you guys. So I do online courses, I do one-to-one tuition, and I do free tutorials just like this one. So this month we are talking about how we can use geometric shapes in our patterns. So I already did a tutorial on how to create a simple circle skirt. We can take that idea of a circle in our pattern and create a beautiful little jacket or shawl, I guess, just like this. So to create this design, we're going to use one circle, but you need to think about your fabric width when you do this. Now I'm working in half scale, so of course I don't really have any restrictions with my fabric width. But if I was working in full scale, I might need to think about putting some seams in. Now that could be a centre back seam, it could be some sort of side seam, kind of whatever you really need to put in there. Ideally a centre back seam would work well in this kind of design. So this design, like I said, is made of a circle. All it really has is some cleverly placed armholes here and here. Now you might see some tutorials where they just do them as little slits, but I prefer to do actual armholes because then we can also put a sleeve on it. Or if you don't want to put a sleeve on, still try and keep it as a normal armhole shape because it's much easier to finish. You can bind it or bag it out, and it's much more comfortable to wear than just a slit in the fabric. This piece turns into this design, and you can see if I lift up the collar, it's our circle in half. If I fold this back down, we go back to our nice little shawl collar there. As well as drafting this design, we're also going to have a look at what happens when we move our armholes slightly further up. So first one, they're in the middle. Second one, they're slightly further up. And we'll have a look at what happens when we change the grain. So first one, straight grain. And the second one we'll have a look at is on bias. So let's have a look at how we draft this pattern. To create this pattern, we're simply going to draft a circle. It's a little bit different to our skirt pattern because we don't have a circle cut out the middle. Instead, we have two armhole shapes cut out for our arms to go through. Because for this, our arms go through here, this is our centre back, and then this area folds down to create our little collar, right? And then this wraps around here, arm goes through here, and this is our front here. So it's a lovely, clever pattern because it's so simple, but it creates that beautiful folded collar that we see. What we need to create these little armhole shapes is a little template of our armholes. So I'll quickly show you how we create this. It's not an exact science, but it gives us something to work with, a starting point. So first of all, I'm gonna pop that to one side. I'm going to start with a paper here with a little cross on it. I'm going to grab my blocks and I'm going to line up the lower edge here with my side seam, bringing my underarm point to the crossed area. Then I'm going to trace from my top balance notch here down to my bottom one, all the way under. Then I'm going to do the same with my back, so lining up my side seam and my underarm point there, tracing from my balance notch there, down, and then I'm going to grab my sleeve because these areas are kind of the straighter areas of our body here where it starts to curve under here. So if we're wanting to find what this shape would be when our garment's stitched together, we need our sleeve to help us create the top there. So taking the matching notch, so my balance notch there, putting that on that notch and then rotating so my shoulder notch hits that top of the cross there. And then I'm going to swivel it, keeping my shoulder notch on that line and bringing my other notch to match my back notch there. And then we get our little oval sleeve shape there, or our armhole shape rather. So I already have my little template here, so I'm not going to bother cutting this out. I'm going to use this to help me draft my circles. Now you can, if you wanted to, instead of doing these little armhole shaped circles, you can just draft this with a little cut up there. But this gives a much nicer fit and it's much more comfortable. And it means that if you wanted to cut your block sleeve and stitch it in, you actually could. You could put little sleeves on this, which is a lovely, cute idea for winter. So the first thing we want to decide is how long we want our circle to be. So let's use our centre back as a guide for this. If my collar comes somewhere around about there, and then my back of my circle comes somewhere down there, maybe my collar should be a bit longer. So total circle width, so my diameter would be from where my thumb is down here up to the end of my tape measure, and when we wear it, this would fold back on itself there. So that means I'm going to make my diameter of my circle around 47. So to get my radius of my circle, I'm just going to halve that. So again, I'm going to draft this on a full circle because I'm working in half scale. If you are drafting this for a full scale and you need to put a seam in somewhere, by all means, feel free. A centre back seam actually works really well. But because I'm doing a full circle, I've folded my paper so that I have 4 layers. So I have folded in half and then half again. This corner here with all the folds is going to be the centre of my circle. I am going to use my handy little trick with a string and a loop to help me draw my circle in. But if you have a compass that's big enough, then by all means you can do that as well. I just always like this little trick and I find it so quick. So if my diameter is 47, then my radius is going to be half of that, which is 23.5. So first thing I'm going to do is measure from my centre of my circle, 23.5, and make a little mark. Then I'm going to use my string and my loop to help me draw this in. And by all means, guys, if you've got a compass that's big enough for this, then use your compass. I just always find this little trick handy and so much quicker than anything else. And when you're drafting circles, particularly when you get large ones, it's very hard to find a tool that works. There we go. Okay, so just going to gently rotate that around. There we go. So that's going to be the basis of my circle. Now, before I do anything else, I'm going to trim off all my excess so that I get my nice circle shape. So pinning my paper together so they can't move, and I'm going to quickly pop some seam allowance on there as well. Alrighty, so let's crease those folds in there because we're going to use them. And then if we open this out, we have our perfect circle. So to do our slits, we basically want to go along our diameter here, so the center fold of our circle. And we want to measure our cross back measurement plus a little bit of ease, and then we're going to draw these on. So my cross back measurement on my mannequin is about, in full scale, it's 10 centimeters down from your nape, so half scale is 5, brings it to about there. If we measure that across, I get 17.3. So I'm going to add a centimeter of ease through there. Half scale would be 2. So 17.3 plus 1 is 18.3. If we divide that by 2, because we're going to measure from the center back, so we just need to measure half, 18.3 is 9.15, so we'll round that up to 9.2. So if we're gonna go along this fold here, let's just draw that in for ourselves. Ooh, didn't do that very well. So from the center, 9.2 centimeters, that's gonna be where our armhole starts. Now, if this is our armhole, where do we wanna put it? Do we wanna put it above, below? No idea, right? Let's put it slap bang in the middle for now. So if I take my template and just fold that in half, then I get my midline, and I'm just going to place that folded line over the line that I drew so that I know I'm not putting this at any weird angles as well. It is dead straight. Then I can quickly pin that down in place, and then I can just draw around it. Alrighty, so open that guy up and boom, we have our armhole. Then we're just going to add some seam allowance on there. And then we can cut through both layers of paper. So I'm going to pin this down around my armhole. Magic. Okay, let's quickly notch those notches in. So through our shoulder notch, balance notch, our lower balance notches, underarm point, and our balance notches up here. Fantastic. Unpin this, and boom, just like magic, we've got our 2 armholes. Now, of course, when you actually twirl this up, you might think, hey, I don't really love my armhole on this angle. I actually would prefer it to be a little bit more like this because of how I want the volume to fall. The angle of your armhole will make quite a big difference to how this falls. But essentially, that is our cute little folded collar cape. Something that's worth noting here is that this would be on the straight grain. So if our centre back is here, we could cut this on the straight grain like that. But if we didn't want this to be on the straight grain, we could also cut it on bias, which would make quite a difference to how it falls. So we could do a grain line like this at a 45-degree angle. We could also then play with the height of our armholes as well as the angle of them. We could move them further up our circle to create a pattern like this. Literally all I've done is I've taken the same kind of circle like this, drafted it just as a plain circle, and then taken my centre back and just shifted it down a little bit and then traced through to get my armhole shapes. That means that my fold here is going to be much less, and it means my lapel edge is also going to be much less, so the edge over here. Now let's take a quick look at what this looks like when we have it on the mannequin, and we'll have a look at something on the bias grain as well with this slightly shorter fold too. So let's have a little think about this design. Once we cut it out and put it on the stand, this is what it looks like. You can see I've done an overwrap here, so it's almost like a double-breasted jacket, but it doesn't have to be pinned like this. We can pin it just edge to edge a little bit further down, which creates more of a V-neck for us and a lower neck. Or we could also reduce the circle width so that our front gets a little bit narrower here, and then still do edge to edge and still get that more circle shape. The bigger your circle, the more fabric you're going to have at the front, and the bigger your little collar piece is going to be at the back as well. So something else we can do here is shift our volume. If we bring that circle right up there, we can put a pin in it. And have more volume at the back, creating almost like a little cowl shape. But again, our circle gets really, really long here. And because this one is on the straight grain, you can see it kind of pokes out, and if we try and force that cowl in there, it cracks, it breaks. So now that we've seen this on the straight grain, let's have a look at our bias sample. Okay, so this is our bias sample, and remember we moved our armholes slightly further up the circle, I guess we could say. So they're not in the center of the circle, they're more towards the top. We can wear it open like this, or we can close it up. But while we have it open, I want you to see the back. We have a much shorter collar, which we expected. That's what happens when we move our armholes. And our volume is distributed differently. Remember on the straight grain, or the kind of one where the circles were in the middle, our volume was very full and we had a huge collar. This is a little bit flatter, and we have more of a kind of softer fall here. And that's also because this piece is on the bias. You can see we get a little natural cowl here. If I close this up, it changes the cowl for us. So open, we get this beautiful waterfall look. But when I pin it a little bit further up like this, it's not just hanging open. At the back, we get a more exaggerated cowl. We get a double fold. And also remember that this is half scale, so the weight of our fabric is multiplied in full scale, right? Because that's really the only annoying thing about half scale, is that the fabric is half its weight because it's half the size. So in full scale, hopefully you get a little bit more of a cowl and a bit more weight through there as well. But you can pin this in any way you want, just like with the white sample, the one on straight grain. We could pin it double-breasted, we can pin it more edge to edge like this and reduce our circle width. We can pin it a little bit further down, make more of a V and get more of a collar drape, more like this. You could even then put a little dot in here and try and shape that a little bit more. You can do all kinds of things with this. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. This was how to draft a circle coat or cape just like this. We looked at 2 different examples and we went through the drafting method. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up to date with all the other videos coming out this month about geometric pattern cutting. I've got loads in store for you, so I hope you guys are excited. Remember, you can find me on my website www.projectpatterns.co.uk for my online courses. See you guys later. Bye.